Hello everyone and welcome back. My name is Greg Furman, market analyst here at TraderPlanet.com, and this is the Forex weekly outlook for the week of June the 14th, 2010. Now, getting started, we're going to begin where we usually do with the US dollar index. Now, what I want to point out with the US dollar index is that this continues to show sign of weakness. What I've got this set up on now is the long-term outlook. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch this over. We're going to change things up a little bit this week and do things a little bit differently than what we normally do. Now, the medium-term outlook here for the US dollar index, we can see that our predicted moving average is getting ready to cross the simple moving average. This is clearly a sell indicator. Now, if we go to our short-term crossover here from Vantage Point, we can also see that the short-term crossover is completed. We have our predicted medium and long-term differences turning, they're still in the positive, but they are turning lower. Our predicted MACD is crossed over to the downside, as is the predicted true strength indicator, but we don't have a longer term signal here, and that's what's a bit of a concern for me at present. But clearly we have what I would say at present is a downside a downside bias to the US dollar, and I'll continue to speak more about that as we go on through the presentation. So for now, we've got a short term showing US dollar weakness. Medium term is not complete. Long term not complete yet either, but again, we have a bias to the downside on the US dollar. Now, moving forward with our presentation this week, we're going to look at a number of currency futures and commodity futures. Now, what we're going to do this week is I have the long-term crossover. I don't have the triple EMA crossover up this week. What I've got is the long-term crossover. So the long-term crossover is a leading indicator that once that long-term crossover has completed for several days, the triple EMA crossover, will then make its move. So going into our crude contracts, what we've got here to begin the week is again strength in the crude oil contracts, in my opinion. Now, we've closed the week at 73.78, a good close. True strength indicator here from Vantage Point still crossed over to the upside. We're moved out of oversold territory, continues to move higher. Now, predicted MACD also supporting that. Now, again, here with the predicted medium and long-term differences both turning positive, this is a good indicator that crude contracts are going to continue to move higher. So with that said, let's go into our daily report here and see if we can actually narrow this down to a price, much like what we did last Sunday. Now, again, what we're doing is we're pulling up the daily report here from Vantage Point. Very, very powerful tool this is. We've got our neural indexes down. We can see here that we've closed at 73.78. Now, our predicted medium and long-term differences are all positive. Neural index is down, so we're likely to see crude come under a little bit of selling pressure right out of the gate on Sunday night. Not to worry though, I think we're going to use the 73 area this week to get into our buy position. So when we get that little bit of, we're going to look for just a little less than $1 pullback on crude, and then we should get back into that. And again, we want to have our stops down in that 69 to 68 area to stay out of that, intraday nonsense that we've been seeing, bouncing all over the place. So we want to stay with the buy position for now, again, based on the long-term crossover. So the long-term crossover is going to be up on all of our indicators here today, and we're going to be using that as a overall medium to longer term signal of which way we want to trade this. So in this particular case, we've got the long-term crossover is crossed to the upside. We're looking to continue with our buying our crude oil contracts. Now, looking at gold again to start the week and seeing how that commodity is shaping up, we can see that the long-term crossover is also complete to the upside. Now, the angle of the predicted medium and long-term differences are pointing down, but the angle in which they're pointing really has no bearing on the direction of trade, to be perfectly honest. Now, of the concern here is that we've got a mixed signal from the predicted MACD and the predicted true strength indicator. We almost have a crossover to the downside on the predicted true strength indicator, which is of course a concern to me, but I think the overall bias to gold is still on the upside. We can see that the predicted MACD has crossed over the trigger and it is holding above the zero line. So again, that is indicative of a slight pullback in gold, and then we're going to probably move higher. Now, I'm going to touch briefly on the S&P 500, and then I'll go into further depth on some of the global equities later in the presentation. Now, looking at the medium term, the long term, excuse me, the long term outlook on this is we've almost got a crossover complete on the S&P 500. So this is a very positive sign. We've got the predicted medium and long-term differences beginning to turn positive here. Our predicted true strength indicator is crossed to the upside. This supports further strength in the equity market, as does the predicted MACD. So the majority of our indicators here are suggesting that the S&P 500 is going to move higher. So let's just move this here for a second over the medium term and see if we can get a cleaner signal. Now, with the medium term, we can see that it's also running flat, which is again a bit of a concern. So we're looking for this to break higher in the next few days. Now, the short-term crossover has completed to the upside, supportive of the predicted MACD and the predicted true strength indicator. But again, we really want to see that medium and long-term crossover complete before we start taking a one-sided trade of only buying the equities. Because again, right now we're seeing a considerable amount of volatility on a week-to-week basis. Now, going into some of our currency pairs, let's start with the US-Japan currency. Now, again, with the US-Japan currency, we've got this week we're using the long-term crossover. So we've moved from the triple EMA, we're using the long-term crossover this week to see if we can gauge the strength of the market. Now, again, predicted true strength indicator crossing over to the upside, everything looks good there. Predicted MACD also supportive of the long position. Predicted medium-term difference is turning somewhat negative, but the long-term difference still looking pretty good, you know, and we've closed the week at 91.63, which is again a good strong close. So let's go into the US-Japan currency pair to see, you know, what we want to do with this to begin the week. Now, looking at again our daily report here, we've got 91.04, 91.8. Neural index is up. Predicted medium difference is the only one that's not really in agreement here. Now, the predicted short-term difference, it's positive but not by a lot. So we're going to be looking for a pullback again this week about the 91.04, 91.20 area. Again, we want to stick with our buy positions. Our long-term crossover is telling us that in a medium to longer term view in the days ahead, the US-Japan, where we're going to experience some intraday volatility, the primary bias here is up. So remember that. We're looking at the between 91.20 and 91.04 to get back into our buy positions on that currency pair. Now, going into the US-Canadian pair, we can see here again, we're only using the long-term crossover this week. We've got the crossover that's hit the trigger. You remember I put out the sell signal last Sunday night. We're going to stick with that sell signal again. Now, looking at the market here, we can see that our predicted MACD is